Welcome to Angelo's Tennis, and in this video we're going to learn how to serve. And this video is going to be very simple, and it's a comprehensive video on how to serve. So there I am, I'm getting ready, and there's going to be two things that we're going to do to learn how to serve from the ground up. We're going to start this from scratch. Okay, this is the way. If you want to have a serve, if you want to have a great serve, a fully developed serve, you have a kid, you're an adult, etc. This is what you have to do, and I want to emphasize that this is what you have to do. This isn't a quick fix. This isn't tennis tips. This is comprehensive. What you have to do, what you have to practice over a long period of time, depending on where you are in your development. So the first thing is you have to learn how to throw. And I don't care what anyone says. This has to be you can serve without knowing how to throw. Okay? You can probably have a decent serve without knowing how to throw. That's irrelevant to me. You have to be able to throw well in order to have a great serve. You have to be able to throw, okay, at a decent level. Let's go back and look at this again. Here I am. Now I know how to throw. I grew up pitching baseball. Okay, that's what I did when I was a kid. Hours and hours and hours of pitching baseball. I was a pitcher, I was a catcher, I was a second baseman, and I played every position, but those are my primary positions, okay? Now I'm going to take the racket. Now these are all kind of jumbled up. These are different steps that you can do, but I'm going to put it all together here at some point. So here I am. I'm on the short court. I'm on the service line. I'm facing forward because that's the last phase of the serve. I'm just going to toss the ball up, and I'm going to hit into the box. Now this is something you can use if you want to learn continental grip. So if you're not familiar with that, we'll throw that in here. Continental grip is the grip that you're going to use for the tennis serve. It's not necessary in the beginning, but let's say you wanted to learn continental grip as well. You use the continental grip. If you don't know what continental grip is, look it up somewhere else. You can do a Google search or something. You're just going to hold it like a hammer, basically, or some variation of that. I'm going to toss the ball up and play the ball and get used to that. Get used to that motion. Get used to the from here, this position from here, with the continental grip to a nice solid contact point. Now, second phase, and this is for like absolute beginners that you're going to do these exercises, and you might have to do them a lot. So the second phase, you're going to get into this trophy position or the throw. I like it. It's called the throw position. Okay, just like if I was going to throw, toss the ball up and throw the racket at the ball. Now here, I'm going to add another video in here of me throwing rackets. And you can do this is kind of like we're in the throwing rackets phase, the throwing phase. So you're going to actually throw rackets. You're going to throw baseballs, tennis balls, whatever. But you also usually, not always, but in a lot of cases, especially with like children, if they don't know how to throw, you can have them throwing old rackets. And that's even better than to learn the motion. That's even better than the ball. Now they have all these like tools and gimmicks that they have that you can buy that to just throw an old racket. And it's funny because when I do this, people look at you weird, like, don't do that, you shouldn't do that. Like, get some old rackets and start throwing them. You know who did this? Serena Williams and Venus Williams. They did this as a kid. This is how you do it. It's the best way to do it because this is what you're actually doing. So you can see me here I'm not actually really doing it fully. I'm just kind of pushing the racket just to demonstrate. But ideally, you would throw the racket, and it's okay that you don't have a full like throw at first. You're just kind of doing it in a controlled way. So here is me throwing rackets, and I have the camera here facing the fence, and that's and you could do it this way too. If you don't want to throw the rackets, ideally you just throw them for distance. It's more practice for throwing. Throw it for distance. You can throw it against the fence. If you don't want to do that, you don't want to hurt anyone, hit anyone, etc. You can just practice throwing it against different ways of throwing against the fence. Now I'm kind of practicing the actual serve with the serve motion, and I'm not really doing it that intensely. But this is another thing with the serve. You can use the fence. You can use the fence. Let me find a nice picture here. You can use the fence to practice your serve too. So you could have them serving into the fence to practice this motion so that they don't freeze up. So it's kind of like a back and forth. You might go onto the court and have them, or especially when you're teaching, because people tend to freeze up. They're trying to get it in the box. You don't worry about getting in the box. Throw the ball up, and just toss the ball up and play your serve, and not really worry so much if it goes in the box, and then slowly work your way into the box, and that's how you get over that fear and and stop yourself from freezing up. You don't worry about making the shot so much, and if they can't do that, or if you have a hard time with that, then you just practice against the fence so that there's no feedback, there's no result, because the feedback could be what's freezing you up. Okay, so here we're going to incorporate the toss. So we've separated so far. The two things I really wanted to focus on was the toss and the throwing action. And these are the two you might have to separate. And I'm actually not doing it in the ideal way here. Okay, here I am. If you're working with someone who's not very coordinated, I do juggling and things like that. I tell you exactly what I did with a kid. I had a kid and I developed his serve. And his serve is never going to be like absolutely amazing as far as like a weapon, because this kid, he lacked strength, he lacked coordination, he had no sporting experience whatsoever. But I mentioned this kid because I developed his serve in a pretty good way for considering all that. And the way I did it was, you have your toss, and you could practice tossing up into a ring. Like you can do it without the serve, without the racket, and just have them tossing up into a ring, like a basketball hoop. That way they get used to doing it exactly the way it is with a real serve. You can do it here, like I'm doing it with the racket, and before I get into that though, and just these ideas of this games that you can practice tossing. And I did with him, I alternated juggling. I taught him how to juggle. So he did like juggling exercises, and then I did tossing, like an actual toss as he would in a game, to give him some variation, because that variation is, if he can juggle, if he can get good at juggling, I know he's going to be able to toss better. And even the idea of tossing in a ring, if he can toss the ball consistently in a ring, like 8 out of 10 times, I know he's going to be able to toss consistently on the tennis court. So, and of course, you're going to use your off hand. There's nothing wrong with using both hands, especially when you're working with kids. You want to make it fun. So there's that element. So we had the throw. Now we're integrating the toss, and then there's the integrating the toss with the racket going back. Now, if you watch me serve, it looks like I'm kind of like, you see this a lot with serving, where you see one arm goes up, one arm goes back. It's not exactly, if they're doing that, if you're doing that, if a kid's doing that, it's okay, but it's not exactly like that. It's more of a toss goes up and then a rotation. And then the racket just kind of slowly gets into that position. And you'll see guys do different variations of this. None of that really matters, okay? You can do it the way I'm doing it. You can do it where you're just bringing it straight up. You can do it where something that's kind of in between. I just want to mention that the more you focus on stuff like that that doesn't matter, the more it's going to mess you up, okay? These are just variations that different people have. All that matters is the ball goes up and the racket gets into the right position. Boom, you're ready to serve. Okay? Everything else right there. None of the other stuff matters. You get in this position, the toss is in the right position, and then you throw the racket at the ball. So you can practice this as well, where they do now they do the toss and then they get in this position. You can do some of these. These don't have to be in order necessarily. You can put them in order eventually. You put them in order, but they can just be depending on what the person needs. And the thing also to mention with the racket, here I am again. If we go back here, a lot of people, it's not exactly like a throw, right? You have to, once you have the throwing motion down, you have to, and this is where the racket comes in, where the it's key with throwing the racket. You're gonna reach up as high as you can, and that's something that may need to be learned as well. Getting used to that. You're throwing, like some people they have. When I say you learn, it's a throw. You have to learn how to throw with being fully extended. So if they're not doing that, then they need to learn that as well. Which you learn that by throwing the racket fully extended. Now this, right, we'll come back to this. I want to mention this because if you got a kid or you're just new into tennis and you want to play the game, there's nothing wrong with serving like this. The way I'm explaining this serve in a lot of cases is something that if you have a lot of time, long term, this is how you would do it. But if you want to play, you might skip all this. You might just do it a little bit sometimes because you want to play. There's nothing wrong with that. And the toss, the thing to mention if you watch me, the toss doesn't have to be perfect. These are all kind of really coordination exercises. Because I can serve, you can see the toss is going to go back. I can serve with the toss being off. And you and the learner should be able to do that as well. It doesn't need to be perfect. So if they're making mistakes because of the toss, it's really, and the toss is close, it's not so much the toss exclusively. Welcome to Angelo's Tennis. Here we're going to look at the process of learning how to hit a tweener. And that is me there. This is the most basic exercise you can do to learn how to hit a tweener. If you are very unsure of yourself with this process, if you have a kid that you're teaching, this is the basic beginning. Roll the ball, walk over the ball. And for little kids, they're gonna have to do this a lot. 10, 11 years old, they can hit a tweener. I've taught kids how to hit tweeners at 10 years old. I've seen older people learn how to hit tweeners. I learned at 30 years old. So you can see here, next step, you're gonna walk over the ball and just try to play it between your legs. Now these steps may not be in order. These are just exercises you can do that as you get better at them, it'll all come together and you'll be able to do it in real time in a match. So here I'm just bouncing the ball with my racket. These are some more fundamentals that, if you can't do this, again, if you're working with children, they should be able to do this first. Bouncing the ball, you can see even bouncing the ball at high speeds. And then here I'm going to just play a game with myself. And notice I'm doing it with myself. I really don't need a partner. In the beginning stages here, these are really coordination exercises. In fact, hitting a tweener is a coordination exercise. I think it's a necessary part of the learning process in tennis. It's not, to me, it's not really an option. It's something that you would practice, that everyone, if you're trying to get better at tennis, this is something that you'd want to master. But here you have me, I'm just bouncing the ball on my racket and then flipping it over my head, and I'm going to walk over it, just like I did on the ground. And then I may try to actually hit it between my legs as well. And then here, doing the same thing but from the side. If you're having trouble going between the legs, this is another exercise you can do. And here I'm using my left hand. You can do this right and left. I do think it benefits to do it with both hands at some point for really advanced players. Then here I'm just dropping the ball and then walking over it, trying to hit the tweener. And there I'm actually going to do it, bounce it over my head, send it over my head, and try to hit it between the legs. And I make it look easy there, but that's how I started. I had a hard time learning this. I know people that pretty much can hit a tweener first try in a game. That wasn't the case for me. I had to do these exercises to really learn, and eventually it all came together. And then once you learn this, you can say that you can hit a tweener and the #1 tennis player in the world cannot. To try and go from a beginner standpoint, try to teach from learning the one-handed backhand as a beginner, and also the progression into a more advanced one-handed backhand in this video. So let's run it through. This is me hitting a one-handed backhand in a match. And here's a slow motion. Kind of looks like I'm about to slice the ball there. Okay, so let's back up here. So, this is going to be get more into what's actually happening in this set here. First of all, we have a ball that's coming pretty quickly, and it's bouncing. It's on the rise. It's bouncing pretty close to me. So it's almost like a half volley. If you go back to my preparation, all I'm gonna do. Here's my ready position. I'm just turning from my ready position. Whatever your ready position is, as you turn, that's where the racket's gonna be. I do kind of put the racket head up a little bit as I'm turning, but for the most part, it's in the position of my ready position. So if your racket head is here in your ready position, that's fine. It might be, your racket head might be here more on that as you turn. I'm gonna get into why that really doesn't matter. There's the bounce. And from here, I have another video called The One-Handed Backhand is a Frisbee Throw. It's kind of comedy, but it's the truth. It's literally, if you break it down, it's like throwing a Frisbee. If I have a Frisbee in my hand here, this is how you're going to throw a Frisbee. You're going to turn, and the racket, as if the racket's a Frisbee, you're going to throw the Frisbee from here into the ball and out to your target. Now, it's not exactly like that. Obviously, you have a racket in your hand. You have to hit this ball. But that's where this rotation comes from. The turn, kind of turn sideways. You're going to rotate into the ball. And there's the contact point. Most important, the contact point. So really most people are looking to get, you're looking to get some type of power so you can hit the ball over the net at this distance. So this is important here, this rotation. But outside of that, the contact point is going to be the most important that people really struggle with, which I'm going to get into here. And then the rest of it here, again, is just the follow through. The finish is just a effect of that strong rotation and the force moving forward. So we're not going to focus too much on that. I'm going to really focus on this contact point. So I want to mention more about the contact point. If you are at that point where you're really mastering the contact point, you do want to start with mini tennis. You start with a smaller court and you move around the court. I don't have a video of this, but you move around the court looking to play maybe from here, from this position. You don't really need to go back that far. It's going to be short, maybe from this position into your contact point, and you might stop there. And by doing that, starting with the smaller court, moving slowly, progressively moving back, or going back and forth, just getting lots of variation, trying to move and play the ball and getting good at that contact point. That's where you're going to work your grip as well. My grip, essentially you could say my grip is like a continental. I've seen people teach, going through the USPTA. They used to have in the grip videos where, and I just saw a video of Brad Gilbert has this grip where it's like, I forget what it's called, but probably more like an Eastern grip. I've never found that to be comfortable ever. So I think it's actually physically impossible to hit a backhand like me or like a Roger Federer with a full Eastern grip. So I would say the most flexibility you're going to get is going to be some kind of version, your personal version of a continental. And I say personal version because you're going to have to tweak it a little bit probably. So that's where you're going to learn all that when you're practicing this short backswing and a short follow through. And just tracking the ball and hitting it to targets. And you could do that for a long time. That's going to be the foundation. And as I said, if you really want to get really foundational, like at kids and stuff like that, you want them learning how to throw a Frisbee. Once they can do it, once they can do it well, it's done. And then you can move to the tennis. But this can be done, and this is what you might see with the red. You can use the red ball. For kids, you can use the red ball. You can use the orange ball. Of course, if you're going to go down a ball and you're going to maybe make it easier, you can do the full. You probably can do the full backhand. But once you get to the yellow ball, you might have to do the short backswing, short follow through again. I just want a quick mention. I have another video of it's called The Harsh Reality of Tennis, and I'm kind of going through a one-handed backhand with this kid, and you can see in that video that kid's trying to do everything all at once. He's trying to finish and follow through way too big, hit way too hard, and he's not mastering the contact point by doing that. So here's another angle. Not the greatest angle. It's a little bit far away, but you can still see. Here's the same thing. I'm going to run it through in a game situation. And I just threw that in there because it's cool. Here's in slow motion. Same thing. I'm in my ready position. I'm just going to turn. It's a little bit kind of like a half volley as well. Off the bounce. And another thing, another benefit here, I do this in this video as well. When you get to the point you're hitting from here, you don't want to hit the same speed because you're going to learn how to you're going to learn this through that contact point playing. But you're going to learn to control your arm to get the ball to go different speeds, different distances, etc. Now, another thing you might do, these balls are coming pretty hard. You're going to add this as well. When you go in your short court game, etc., you're mastering the contact point, you might want to practice backspin and topspin. So here I'm not really putting that much topspin on the ball because the ball's coming so hard. But as you get fed slower balls, you can really work the topspin. That's going to be part of the progression as well. And you're going to want to do that with lots of different movement, not just being static. Because you're going to want, as we see here, if I back it up, you can see where I start. I'm starting here. You have to move to these different positions and still be able to maneuver the racket in order to hit topspin, which will be more difficult. Probably be more difficult. I would say it depends on the person, but it would be more difficult than what I'm showing in this video. So we can say there's some progression here. Mastering the contact point, hitting different directions at different distances, different speeds, and then maybe throwing in that same playing with topspin and backhand. I mean topspin and backspin. Here we have everyone's favorite, Roger Federer. This is a warm-up. Here's him in the ready position. You can see his racket head's a little bit lower in the ready position, and then he'll turn. It'll go up higher. And now I just want to mention, this is a lot slower than what I just showed you. So he's going to be able to, I would say this, I'm just kind of presuming here. I don't think this really matters. It should be natural, but the racket head potentially will go higher or can go higher if the ball coming at you is slower. About the same, little, almost like a half volley there. There's a contact. So if you're hung up on this racket head thing, the balls need to be moving slower. Another important thing, I talked about the half volley. All those different exercises, it's important to play half volleys as well. And you could also say, well, you're not always going to be able to get that close to the ball. So you can do the same thing with that contact, with that short backswing. I wouldn't worry about anything else. When you get to here, you don't have to make it short, but the shorter the better. Just getting as close to contact point as you can, and then short follow through. You could do that with high bouncing balls, balls at farther distance, as I said, the moving around the court, but playing more back in the court, getting someone to hit you balls that are higher and get used to the higher contact point. You can see, because a lot of these videos, like this is like the perfect contact point. Roger, he's getting, if you watch him hit these, not just him, but a lot of these players, they're hitting the ball from waist high. And the reality is, when you're learning the one-handed backhand, you're gonna have, in order to get into that groove, into that rhythm, to get that consistency, you're not gonna get everything at waist high. Later on, it might be like that. So it's important to, again, this is why the contact point, it's important to get used to receiving the ball from these different heights. So that is my synopsis of the one-handed backhand, how to learn it. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I feel like this is pretty exhaustive, but if not, then leave me a comment, send me an email as well if you're interested in something specific, and thanks for watching. So here you're going to play against the wall, or you could play in a feed with a feed or a rally, and you're just hitting backhands, two-handed backhands, trying to accelerate as quickly as you can with the hands. This one here is definitely better if you have someone feeding you balls. But this can be good for the frequency speed, just getting used to doing it repetitively. And then of course you're going to play left-handed. And here you can see I'm just getting good at actually just playing left-handed forehands. And then as I get better, I'm going to try to increase the racket head speed. Again, you can do this off a feed, you can do it in a rally. You want to do it in a way when you're trying to increase your speed that, like just like the other exercises, you can do, say 8 to 10 reps for 3 sets as fast as you can. You see I'm doing backspin as well. So you're going to alternate backspin, topspin. So here we're going to do some hand tapping. You're going to tap as fast as you can. You can do 3 sets of, say, 10 seconds. You can also use weights on your hands as well. Doing this exercise on and off with weights, without weights. You could also do punching exercises where you're punching as if you're boxing. Just like lifting weights, 3 sets of, say, 10 to 12 reps as fast as you can. And that's going to increase your hand speed. And here I'm going to try to mimic a swing volley. Again, you can use, this is probably better off of a feed, but this is a good coordination game for kids to be able to bounce the ball off the wall and then hit a swing volley with a two-handed backhand. You can see how much it accelerates my my racket head speed. And I'm going to do this left-handed as well. It's going to be even better left-handed. And you can make a game out of this too for kids where they have to try and catch the ball after they hit it. You can even do like a point system where if you catch it out of the air, it's 3 points. If you catch it off the bounce, it's 2 points. If you successfully hit the ball over the line, it's 1 point. Welcome to Angelo's Tennis. How to hit the perfect lob. So I'm going to run the video here. I'm going to play out the point. I'm going to hit a little drop shot here. And there it is, the perfect lob. So let's back it up here and see how this works. Okay, here we go. So here is the lob. So my opponent is going to be here at the net. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to completely ignore my opponent here. He might as well not even exist. He's a ghost. That's the first thing you got to do. Pretend as if he's not even there. And it's hard to see on this video, but on the other side, I'm going to draw a line right here. I'm going to draw a line, imaginary line, or you could practice this way. You could have your opponent at the net, practice ignoring him, and just focus on the target back here. You could draw a line, and I'm going to lob the ball, obviously, and hit that target. And if you do that successfully, you will get better at hitting lobs. It's as if I'm shooting a basketball in a hoop. I'm pretending that there's no one there because I don't want him to get in the way of my concentration. So the way to practice this, if you want to practice this, is to draw a line back here, right about here, and practice playing out this scenario. Someone at the net or coming to the net and you lobbing to that target. Welcome in, and we're talking volleys. Coming to the net, approaching the net, volleys, doubles at the net, whatever you want to call it. And here I am. It's hard to believe that this was just maybe a month ago that I took this video. And I'm at the net, or I'm on the service line, and I'm just taking volleys, random volleys from my partner. And the first thing I want to point out is you're going to want to play volleys from, and I've said this, I know I've said this before, play volleys from all different positions. And here I'm at the service line. And when you're playing volleys from the service line, you're going to get a lot of low volleys, which you're going to see in this video. Now my partner, which you can't see, if he's watching this, he likes to take volleys on top of the net. And rarely do I see him taking volleys at the service line. And I would say that's part of the reason why a person can't really progress with their volleys, because they're not getting enough low volleys to practice. So let's run it here. I'm just going to try to point out some things. So the next thing I want to point out is the contact point. This is going to be by far the most important thing when it comes to volleys, is the contact point. Control over the contact point. So you have a bunch of different balls coming at you, different speeds, different spins, and the practice is going to be to learn how to control the contact point there. And how you're going to do that is, first you're going to try these practice with these different positions and different players hitting, again, different spins and speeds, etc. And you're going to practice hitting them to the target. And if you make, basically it's like this. If you make the target, you know you're successful. Nothing else matters, which I'm going to get into in this video. This is the primary number one thing you have to focus on. I want to point out that, you know, a lot of volley instructional videos will talk about moving the feet. They'll talk about moving forward through the shot. And I want to emphasize that this is perhaps the only thing you need to focus on. If you could exclude everything else and just focus on this, your volley game would improve tenfold. And the other thing I'm going to mention here, that I want to repeat what I just said, that the target, if you make your target, or if you get close to your target, it doesn't have to be like a cone or a tennis ball. Say like maybe a 5 foot by 5 foot area. If you make that target, you know you got the contact point right. And we're going to look at that first. We're not going to look at how hard did you hit it, how much spin did you put on the ball, because when you're already at the net, you're already in a position that's going to put pressure on your opponent. So 9 times out of 10, if you can just hit your target, even if the ball sits a little bit, isn't really hit that hard, you're still going to put pressure on your opponent. So we're going to look at these things first. I want to get a lot of half volleys as well, being in this position. Now moving along, we can see that I do move, generally speaking, like there, you can see I moved through the shot. I'm kind of walking through it. Now the reason that you want to keep your feet moving forward or walk through or move through the shot, particularly the most important reason, is that you're not reaching for the ball, that you can get to the ball, because when you're volleying, the movement is a lot harder. It's a lot harder to get to the ball. So that is the main reason why you want to keep moving through the shot. Other than that, you really don't have to move through the ball, because as I said, even if you find yourself in a position where you're static, which you're going to see in this video, you're already in a position to put pressure on the opponent often. And if you hit the target, that's good enough. And I want to also say that there will be times where you have to reach. So saying that you're never going to reach for the ball is just, you're kind of holding yourself back. You will have to reach for the ball at times. It's impossible to walk through every ball or to move through every ball. And of course, it could depend a lot on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to hit the ball deep, you might move through the ball more. If you're trying to hit a drop volley, which I hit a lot of drop volleys, then you're not going to move at all. Here we have the contact point again. There's a good example there. It's hard to see in this video, but this guy I'm playing with hit that ball very hard, and you can see I have to control the contact point and just receive the ball to a target. There's nothing else I can do there, and there I did it again. To try and do more than that is kind of being stubborn. And it's hard to hear that. If I back up here, you can hear my partner if I turn the volume up. He said they don't get nicer than that. I'm sure it was some kind of short angle to the right there, drop volley. And hopefully you can see how I did it there. Most of the balls in competitive tennis, anyway, most of the balls you're going to receive are going to be difficult. And that's, again, why I emphasize the contact point and just receiving or catching, you could say catching the ball, controlling that contact point to a target. Most of the balls will be difficult. So doing any more than that is going to be, an exception. A lot of times when you see competitive tennis players doing the things other than that, like really moving through the shot, etc., that the balls aren't really moving that fast. Now you can see I'm at the service line. I'm really not moving forward. One, because I want to get low balls, but at the same time, he's hitting fairly hard. If he wasn't hitting as hard, I might move up. I might move up a little bit. You can see here, another low ball, little angle. It's hard to see that angle there, but the racket is just slightly directed here to the left. And you can hear my partner. You can hear my partner again. That's just too good. That's ridiculous.
That's just too good, man. That's just ridiculous.
Really, I didn't do much. I just caught the ball to my target. Very much underutilized in competitive tennis. If you're wondering what that racket is I'm using, it's a custom racket that a garage custom, it's got to weigh like 400 grams. Surprisingly, it's not, it didn't feel that heavy, as heavy as I thought it was going to feel. So you can add the backspin, the backspins, the more shots like that. You could see I really moved through it and probably put a lot more spin on it, more use of my hands. But that's the last thing I would do. Especially when learning the volley, you can be a really good volleyer without that. Here I am just coming forward, just kind of walking in, getting used to moving into the court. And this is where you're going to really learn more of that movement through the ball because you're forced to come forward when you start back here. So that's another thing when you're practicing volleys in this position here. There's a good reason why you're not moving through the shot very much, and it's not always appropriate.